We need to find out what happened to Madison.
Because of me.
Oh, she's
Because of me. Because of me.
Why is that?
Say she's dead because of you.
Because I killed her. I killed her. She's dead, so I killed her. I can't believe I'm capable of doing that. I can't believe it.
At 6 p.m. on April 16th, 2020, police were traveling on Gulf Breeze Parkway. They observed a small white car traveling behind them. The car was flashing their headlights at them, trying to get their attention. Police pulled to the side of the road and were approached by Raymond Edins. He was frantic. He was distraught. He said his stepdaughter, Michelle Vasquez, just called him. She was in the woods across from her residence with her week-old baby who was dead. By the way, every image you're going to see in this video is from the crime scene. The girl's name was Madison Flores. There are no images of her available anywhere. Police asked Raymond if the mother had taken the child's life. He said he didn't know, but he wanted the police to locate the baby. They then went to the residence, 5867 Congress Street. Police were told paramedics was en route due to a potential dead infant in the woods. Everyone was frantic, trying to locate the mother and baby. So when the police got to the house, there was a wooded lot. The police ran across the street to find Michelle. As they got closer, there was a woman in the woods. She was crying. She began hollering back to the police, stating, "I'm over here, I'm over here." They asked her if the baby was still alive. She said no. They attempted to get her through the thick bush and wooded lot. Police believed this to be the best way to get to Michelle. She said she had to crawl under lots of trees to get to where she was. So police got down, crawled underneath a lot of the trees to where Michelle and her infant was located. They looked at Michelle. She was sitting on the ground, dressed in a blue shirt and black shorts. She was not wearing any socks, and her shoes were nowhere to be seen. Michelle was crying and sitting on top of a small pink blanket. They asked Michelle where her baby was, and she said, "Over there, over there." She was pointing to a blanket behind her. Police put on their gloves. They crawled around Michelle to observe the outline of a child under the blanket. Then they lifted the corner of the white blanket and observed an infant who was approximately 1 to 2 months old. This infant was laying on its back, face up on the bare ground. The baby's color was blue. There was flies and ants all around the baby. The baby was dressed in a light green jumper. Police did not observe any movement or respiration from the baby, and she was cold to the touch. They then checked Michelle. She was still crying and she kept shouting, "I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad mother." She said, "I should have stayed in the mental hospital." They noticed that on Michelle's arms there were scratches. There were also scratches on her hands and legs. These appeared to have been caused from the numerous thorns in the bushes around her. Police then told Michelle to go toward where the other people were standing. Michelle crawled back and went to the police and her family. When they all got back to the family, police looked at Michelle's life and where she lived. She lived with her mother. Her name was Yolanda Edins, and her stepfather, previously mentioned Raymond Edins. Police advised both Raymond and Yolanda that they needed to secure their house and that the perimeter around it is now a crime scene. At this moment, Detective Vaughn spoke with Raymond again. Raymond told him that his wife called him and said that Michelle and the baby were gone. Raymond said they called the sheriff's office to report Michelle as missing, and then around 6 p.m. that night, Yolanda called him and that she was very upset. She was crying, asking him to come back to the house immediately. He told police that Yolanda had gotten a call from Michelle and that Michelle was in the woods near their house and that the baby was dead. When the police spoke to Yolanda, Yolanda said that Michelle left that day around 5:30 in the morning. Yolanda then went to work and came back at 9:30, and Michelle and the baby were missing. And at this moment she thought maybe she's gone for a walk, she'll be back. But then she realized they're not back and she was unable to locate them. And it was around 5:30 when Yolanda got a call from Michelle, and Michelle said she was in the woods across the street from their house and that the baby was dead. This is when Yolanda called Raymond, who called the sheriff's office. While that was going on, Michelle was outside the house. She was crying and she was shook up. She looked dirty and as if she had been in the woods a long time. She had a difficult time walking and it looked painful for her to walk. She said she was sore from being cramped up for a long time in the woods with her baby. See, at this point, police did not know if the baby died naturally or if it was a homicide. They asked Michelle what was going on, and she replied, "I suffocated her." At the same time, Michelle made a motion with both of her arms, as if she was holding the baby against her chest tightly and demonstrating how she throttled her daughter. She was crying as she was doing this. Police did think she was remorseful, but did not want to ask her any more questions straight away, as they knew further investigators would be responding to talk to her shortly. So then the firefighters arrived, and when they spoke to Michelle, Michelle said, "I don't want any help, leave me alone." She was shook, but medically she seemed okay. When Sergeant Hall arrived, he went to the residence to get Michelle a chair to sit down to keep her away from her family and out of the way. Police then obtained Michelle and her daughter's names for the record. She stated her name was Michelle Vasquez and her daughter was Madison Marie Flores. Police told her to relax the best she could and that investigators were en route to talk to her. But then Michelle started to mutter words. She said, "I wish we died together." She was crying and continued to talk to herself, making several comments such as, "I'm so stupid, it was a split-second decision. Why couldn't I suffocate too? Why did I do this?" Police just let her talk and they did not want to ask her any more questions. Just leave her alone so she doesn't cause harm to anyone else. Michelle went on to say, "I threw in the towel and I don't deserve to live. I can't get a job to pay for anything." So police then went into her history, and what they found out is going to make you go, wow. So with her, there were 4 prior investigations involving her and her family. Michelle told the Department of Children and Families that she had anger issues and needed help. The agency responded by offering drug treatment, mental health care, and parenting classes, most of which Michelle failed to complete. There also was no effort to remove Madison from Michelle's custody, despite signs of trouble such as Michelle's documented mental instability. You see, there was a prior history involving her toddler son. There were domestic violence accusations, and you had her own mother's past. Yes, Michelle's mother had been incarcerated for her role in the death of her own son, Michelle's brother. Wow. As part of a previous DCF investigation, Madison's grandfather learned that the DCF were waiting for all the other siblings to be hurt, to be in pain, to get assaulted before they could do anything. And 5 weeks before Madison's death, a private child welfare agency had asked Michelle to leave a parenting and drug treatment program because she refused to cooperate. So they tried to help her a little bit, then they basically pushed her away saying, "Nah, we're gonna have to wait till this gets worse." What? You see, a departmental review of Madison's death concluded that there was a number of red flags and risk factors were noted during the investigation, but not given sufficient weight or consideration in the risk assessment or decision making. In other words, the report said regarding this case, "Well, we don't think the situation was severe enough for us to act." Well, have a look at what happened, Muppets. So the police charged Michelle with the murder, and during the trial, Michelle was found guilty. The judge ordered her to spend life in prison and 35 more years for convictions on aggravated child issues and a violation of probation for grand theft auto. Now, many of you, I don't think have heard Michelle's story before, and it's probably because there's not much information on it. What I've told you, that's about it. She took her child to the woods. She throttled her child. The child died. She claimed it's because of her bad life and how she felt like nothing and that she had some mental issues. But in reality, it seems she was just an aggressive character. Who knows? But Madison Flores, nobody knows what she looks like. Nobody knows her name. Nobody knew she even existed for the most part. It's just so sad. I now want to go on to a story which will break you, but it must be told. Rachel Bond had a troubled history of substance abuse. This included heroin, cocaine, and pills. As a result, she lost custody of 2 older children. After that, she was living on the street, supporting herself by sex work and dealing drugs. She was also convicted of related sex crimes. Bella Bond, her daughter, was born in August 2012. During the first year of her life, she and Rachel lived in shelters. The DCF twice assessed her ability to care for Bella. Then in 2013, they moved to an apartment in Boston. At this time, neighbors described Rachel as very loving and really nice to Bella, who was really happy and always playing. Other than the marijuana and prescribed medications, Rachelle was not using drugs. But then she met Michael McCarthy when he struck up a conversation with her outside a pharmacy and persuaded her to give him some Clonopin. In February 2015, he sent her a text message to buy drugs. He then came to her apartment and moved in. She was impressed by his intelligence, particularly on subjects involving spirituality. He told Rachelle that he felt negative energy around her and burned sage to eliminate an evil presence in her apartment. Maybe that was you, Muppet. He said he could treat her abdominal pain with the Reiki technique, by which he held his palms above her body while she thought of the color yellow, and she believed that it worked. A romantic relationship developed between them. Soon after he moved in, his childhood friend Michael Sprinsky stayed at the apartment for 2 weeks. During that time, Bella was smiling, laughing, and playing, and the apartment was neatly kept. Sprinsky became increasingly annoyed by McCarthy's frequent talk about demons and his claim that he could rid evil spirits. You see, McCarthy had been interested in these topics since childhood, but in Sprinsky's view, he had become obsessed with them. So, Rachelle then resumed using heroin together with McCarthy, and when Sprinsky would again visit, the apartment was in disarray. Little attention was paid to Bella, so sometimes Sprinsky was the one who prepared food for her. McCarthy and Rachelle both told him that Bella was possessed. They both frequently asked Bella if she was possessed by demons. If she did not agree that she was, Rachelle sometimes assaulted her. McCarthy never intervened during these sessions, and several times he locked her in a closet as punishment for her demons. In early of June 2015, Rachelle was having difficulty putting Bella to bed. One night after Rachelle had tucked her in about 11:30 p.m, Bella ran out of her bedroom, and each time Rachelle put her back in. When Rachelle and McCarthy heard her playing in her room in the dark, McCarthy said he would put her to sleep, went into the room, leaving the door ajar. Within 5 minutes, however, Bella followed him out, and then anger struck. McCarthy inserted his fist into Bella's stomach so hard that she bounced up. Rachelle yelled, "What did you do?" In response, McCarthy just looked at her. Bella was not breathing, and her head looked swollen. It was grey, so Rachelle tried to resuscitate her. When it did not work, she picked the girl up in her arms and left. McCarthy grabbed Rachelle by the throat with both hands and said he would take her life. Bella fell out of Rachelle's arms and Rachelle lost consciousness. When she regained consciousness, she was on the couch. She was too afraid of McCarthy to try to flee. She passed out again and awoke sometime later when McCarthy injected heroin into her neck. As sickening as that sounds, she was happy about this. She was getting her fix. But then she said, "What are you doing? You killed my daughter." And he replied, "It was her time. She was a demon, wasn't she?" After he injected her with the heroin, he guided her to his car. He placed her in the back seat. There were weights and a green duffel bag containing the child's body. When Rachelle saw the body, she screamed. McCarthy then knocked her unconscious. When Rachelle next regained consciousness, the car was in an open area by a body of water. McCarthy then got into the car and drove away. As they left the area, Rachelle recognized it as City Point in South Boston. But Rachelle at this moment did not report Bella's death. She kept using heroin and wanted to be taken out of reality because she couldn't handle the loss of her child. McCarthy repeatedly threatened to take Rachelle's life, which she believed he would do because he just took Bella's life. McCarthy told her that children go missing all the time, no one's gonna care. So then for the next couple of weeks, he stayed near Rachelle constantly, even when she used the bathroom or took a shower. Eventually, he started leaving the apartment occasionally. When he did, he gave her a cell phone that did not have internet access so he could contact her. For the next several months, they injected heroin between 4 and 7 times a day. 4 and 7 times. I don't even have 4 friends. On the 25th of June 2015, a woman walking on a beach on Deer Island found a knotted trash bag. This contained the dead body of a female toddler wrapped in 2 blankets. The autopsy revealed there was bruises on her arm, abdomen and legs, and hemorrhaging on her abdomen, lower back and shoulder blade. The medical examiner said that she died of asphyxia, which might have been caused by compression of her abdomen as shown by the bruising, or a sharp mark below the heart. She had been likely dead at least a week. Now, within hours of discovering the girl's body, it received wide media coverage because her identity was unknown. She was called Baby Doe. The next morning, McCarthy made several calls from downtown Boston to the cell phone he had given to Rachelle. Now, the cell location information showed he traveled to Mattapan at 10 a.m. Then he traveled to Boston, where he was near the reserved channel where he took the body. Now, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children generated a computer image approximating her appearance, which was widely publicized. The Coast Guard analyzed currents in Boston Harbor to try to determine where the body had drifted from. But without information as how long she had been in the water, they could not locate a point of origin. As time went on, Prinsky, he went to McCarthy and Rachelle and he said, "Hey, where's Bella?" They both replied, "She's with Rachelle's sister." Neither one of them mentioned her death. Again, as time went on, Prinsky asked them again, "Where is she?" They then said, "Oh, she's with Rachelle's father, don't worry." Now on July 16, 2015, Rachelle went to housing court to oppose an eviction she received. While she was there, McCarthy repeatedly sent her text messages. He warned her not to claim that she needed housing for her child because the court might involve the DCF, and then the DCF might be like, "Well, hold on a minute, where's her child?" He then demanded that she tell him, "Hold on, are you even in court?" This is when Rachelle told her landlord's attorney that her boyfriend was keeping tabs on her, and at her request, the attorney wrote down his cell phone number and a notation that Rachelle had been in court until 2 p.m. Now, on September the 9th, 2015, Bella's biological father, Joseph Amoroso, showed up at Rachelle's apartment asking to see Bella. McCarthy was monitoring the conversation. Rachelle told Joseph that Bella was visiting her godparents. A week later, Joseph returned to the apartment and knocked on the door for a long time. Eventually, Rachelle came outside and spoke to him while McCarthy watched from the window holding a baseball bat. She again told him that Bella was with her grandparents. When she came back inside, McCarthy berated her for about 10 minutes in Prinsky's presence, screaming insults while wielding the bat. Rachelle then got an infection, went to the hospital to get treatment, and in the hospital, Rachelle tearfully told Prinsky that McCarthy took Bella's life. Prinsky then searched the internet for information about Baby Doe and saw a photograph of a blanket that he recognized as Bella's. He sent a text message to McCarthy that stated, "She told me everything. She said you took Bella's life." And he replied, "You're gonna listen to a cracked out hooker?" He told him, "The DCF took Bella. That's what Rachelle told me." Prinsky called him and asked, "How could you do that to a child?" So, on September the 17th, 2015, Prinsky told a probation officer that Baby Doe was Bella Bond. He was then interviewed by state police. He disclosed Rachelle's address and the text messages between him and McCarthy. That day, Rachelle heard a knock at her apartment door. She looked out and saw the police, so she left through the back window. She met up with Joseph and told him that Bella was dead. After using a bag of heroin together, they decided to get a lawyer and go to the police. But first, they went to Joseph's mother's house that night. The next morning, police found them there and interviewed them. Police then interviewed McCarthy. He admitted he had been staying at Rachelle's home, which he described as a 2-bedroom apartment where she lived alone. When they asked him, "Okay, who lives in the bedrooms?" he said, "Well, Bella did, but then she was taken by the DCF." When they asked, "Well, why did the DCF take her?" he said that Rachelle often complained about Joseph, who had shown up at the apartment several nights yelling and screaming. When he was asked if he ever saw Rachelle hurting Bella, he said no. And when police told him that Bella had been killed, he acted surprised and said he did not know she was dead, and when asked if he had gone to South Boston or Boston Harbor, he denied it. Now, based on Rachelle's description, police went to the place in City Point where there was a wharf with direct access to the reserve channel. It was around 300 yards from where McCarthy had lived as a teenager, and he and his friends used to drink there. After about 5 minutes of searching in the water, about 5 feet from the wharf, state police found a duffel bag and some weights. One of the weights was the same brand as a set that police found in McCarthy's shop. In fact, a Coast Guard search and rescue controller said that it was quite possible Bella's body had floated from that reserve where they were all the way to Dare Island. Police then charged McCarthy with the murder and Rachelle as an accessory. In the trial, she alleged that McCarthy is the one that did this to Bella. She said he claimed Bella was a demon and that he was the sole perpetrator. Prosecutors alleged that Bella was murdered in one of many occasions after she had been uncooperative about going to bed, citing that McCarthy had decided to calm the child down. McCarthy himself claimed it was Rachelle who was responsible for Bella's death. McCarthy's lawyer objected to claims made by Rachelle's defense and stated that his client had no knowledge of Bella's death, saying no sufficient evidence exists to indicate otherwise, and claimed that McCarthy had in fact moved out of her residence before Bella died. McCarthy claimed he had left after witnessing Rachelle's negative treatment of Bella, which included emotional and physical abuse. His defense also cited that Rachelle's statements could not be confirmed and that she was more likely to have done this to her daughter because of her drug history. So, in February 2017, the prosecutor suggested that Rachelle be awarded with time served in exchange for a testimony against McCarthy. This decision was made after considering the allegations that she had been threatened to be killed if she came forward about Bella's death. So in 2017, she pled guilty and was credited with time served plus 2 years of probation. During McCarthy's trial, a lifelong friend of McCarthy took the stand and expressed that he had warned Rachelle of the potential danger she was in after entering a relationship with McCarthy. He explained that this was due to his dark side, including the fact that he heavily researched topics such as demons in satanic rituals. He also apparently believed he had the ability to expunge demons from a residence. So McCarthy was charged with first-degree murder, but the judge allowed the jury to consider a lesser charge of second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. In June 2017, the jury found him guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. He will not be eligible for parole till 2037. So that's the end of this case. Now, going back to Michelle's case, I think her sentencing was correct. As for Rachelle, she got let off the hook. What do you think? Should she have served some time? Let me know. Him getting sentenced to life is fair. So why don't you comment? Tell me what you think.